Hey there, how we doing? I've got a 2018 F-150 with the 10R80 transmission. I've got 122 and some thousand miles on it. I bought it probably about a month ago, and when I test drove it, I bought it from a private guy, a younger dude, and when I test drove it, it drove fine. Transmission was great, no issues at all. I feel like he probably drove it a little more aggressively than I do. I might drive like an old man now, but so after I'd had it for about a week or maybe 2 weeks, it just started shifting weird. And where it shifted weird was between if it would go from third to fourth. There would be that flare or that stall to where it just doesn't quite want to grab a gear. I basically know everything about a 10R80 transmission now. I've watched a ton of YouTube videos. There's a ton of them out there of what we're gonna do. We're gonna reset the tables on here, okay? The adaptive learning tables. I don't know if it's still stuck in something there. Here's the deal with mine. If I drive it in normal mode, I notice it a lot more than any other mode. And if I go, like if it skips a gear, like if I get on it, it'll go first to third, and then it will go 3 to 5, and that is smooth as butter. There's no hesitation, no problem there. So the guy at the Ford garage said, put it in sport mode, and if you can go through every one of the gears, you know, without any big clunks or anything, he goes, that's a good thing. And try resetting the adaptive tables. And I was like, well, can I just bring it in and have you guys do it? And he goes, well, you got to set up an appointment, diagnostic fee of at least $160. So I went out, I got a OBD connector. I have a Mac computer at home. FORScan you can't run on a Mac. You can get a Windows editor or Windows thing, and I fought with that. I'm not a computer guy. So I went to the pawn shop and bought a cheap Windows computer for 80 bucks. So I've got it all downloaded on there. We're gonna check it out. Okay, before we do this here, I'm gonna try to show you what this does. And real quick too, eco mode, it does a very good job in eco mode. I barely notice any of that lag or that flare in eco mode, probably because that's just probably my style of driving, the old man driving here. But if I take the traction control off, a lot less of an issue with that with traction control off too, because I think the RPMs are higher when it goes to change gears. So just messing around with different modes, it's weird because, you know, some it works better, and then I don't know. So I'm just trying to figure out if it's my transmission, the CDF drum, and the bushing moving. The one thing I'm curious about, so I'm a machinist, and my thought is if this bushing has moved, it should be consistent, right? I can't imagine this bushing is just sliding back and forth in there, causing inconsistent flares, because right now, I mean, some days if I'm in normal mode, there's no issues at all going from third to fourth, and some days it's you know, a 1 or 2 second lag when it's trying to switch that gear from 3 to 4. So my thought is that bushing's pressed in there. I feel like in my mind that bushing can move a little bit over time due to heat and everything and wear. But I can't imagine that thing's just floating back and forth in there and giving me that inconsistent, that flare. So we're gonna reset the tables on here. We're gonna try it out. And then I also saw too, you don't just reset the tables. There's kind of a little drive you have to do. On the top of my head, oh, I got it on my phone here. We'll just go over that real quick because I'm gonna do this as well. After you reset it, it says, from a complete stop, accelerate using approximately 15% throttle. Target is 13 to 1600 RPMs. After shift 7th and 8th, accelerate to 55 miles per hour, and then gently brake to a complete stop. Hold the brake for 5 seconds, shift to neutral for 1 second, shift to reverse for 2 seconds, shift back to neutral for 1 second, shift to drive for 2 seconds, and then repeat that 6 more times. So seven total cycles of that drive. There's a little stretch of county highway. I'm gonna go out and do that after I do reset the tables. We're gonna see what happens. But if that doesn't work, I might just turn off the adaptive learning altogether and just see what it sounds like and trade this sucker in. I don't know. We'll see. All right, more to come. All right, here's this OBD connector that I got on Amazon. I'll put a link to that down below. This one has the automatic, was it HS or HB, VS? I don't know. Where it switches between modes, it does it automatically. So I'll put that in the description below. It was like 35 bucks on Amazon compared to the $80 one that I've seen a lot of people recommend. And it works great. So I'm gonna get this thing plugged in. I got my laptop from the pawn shop and we'll give this thing a shot. All right, let's open this thing up here. I got it plugged in. FORScan. Sounds so incredibly close to FORScan, but whatever. All right, we're gonna click down here. Where's my mouse at? Click down there to the connect button. We'll do that. It's gonna run through all these things. Yes, we're gonna use that. It's gonna go through this checklist, like checking all the diagnostics and things like that. That helps. Got the key turned on. All right, we're gonna go to the wrench. We are gonna go to clear transmission adaptive table. Perfect. Okay, we're gonna go down to the run of the play button. Clear transmission. Heck yeah, and cross my fingers. I think this computer, oh, that was pretty quick actually. All right, procedure complete. I'm gonna run this thing through that set of gears, you know, nice and easy, because I drive like an old man, and then do that 7 times and we'll see how it goes. It's too hard for me to drive and film, so I'll just kind of update you after I'm done with these, but hopefully it's nice and smooth and no issues. Wouldn't that be wonderful? All right, more to come. Complete. I did the reset. I did the I ran through that sequence 7 times, pulling over, stopping, neutral, reverse, neutral, and then drive up to 55 miles an hour or whatever I got to, getting up into gear 10. So right off the bat, I noticed that I went from first to third to fifth quite easily. It didn't really go to second or fourth, and I was pretty light on the gas. But then the higher gears, which I've never had a problem with, the higher gears, there was a bit of a lag in there. But as I started going through the process of that starting and stopping, that improved quite a bit by the end, and that was actually kind of cool to see that. And a couple times I got it to go in gear 4. It still has that flare there. It's definitely not as bad, so I don't know what to think about that. Maybe I'm just gonna keep driving it. Maybe it's the CDF drum, probably is that, but I'm gonna drive it around for a few days, not mess with anything. I'm not gonna put it in eco mode or sport mode or anything like that, and just kind of see if it kind of smooths itself out a little bit before I go and just take off adaptive learning altogether and trade this sucker in, because I'm unsure what that's actually gonna do. That scares me to take that off, but you never know. It could be just enough to make it seem like it's good enough to trade in, so we'll see. But I think it's very important when you reset that adaptive learning on the transmission to go through that sequence, because it was quite a difference from the first time to the 7th time that I did it, where it was looking for gears and it's like, okay, yep, this is where I need to be. So I'm just gonna drive around some of these neighborhoods a little bit more, just so I, you know, kind of rolling through some of those lower gears quite a bit more. My driving style, you know, a little bit lighter foot. So I'll check back in, you know, and see how it is after a couple days. I'm not gonna pull the boat with this tomorrow. I'm gonna use my other pickup, my old one, to pull the boat. So I don't wanna mess that up, putting it in tow haul and putting a load behind it and messing it up with that way. So not gonna pull anything for a bit. Right now, we'll call it somewhat of a success, but it's all the other gears, I gotta say too, it shifts a lot smoother, especially when it downshifts. Like there's no, and it wasn't bad, but you could definitely tell. So the shifting is definitely a lot smoother. Like I said, I still got that flare at 4. It's not as long, it's not as pronounced, and it seems like it skips from 3 to 4 a lot, or it skips from 3 to 5 easier, or at a less RPM than it did before when it was searching for 4 and it would flare. So, you know, that's a good thing if I can just skip 4 altogether. I wish there was a way to just turn gear 4 off. Unfortunately, I've looked quite a bit into that because that's where my problem is, and there's no way to turn gear 4 off. I wish I could just say ignore gear 4 altogether. If there's a way to do that, drop it in the comments below. All right, I'm gonna put a link for that OBD connector in the comments below. Use my link. I appreciate it. I get a little kickback if you guys click through that link. If you've had any experience with these transmissions, which it looks like a lot of people have, shoot me your fixes, troubleshooting, you know, what works best for you, what mode do you drive in when this transmission is feeling like it's failing, how long does it last after you start to notice symptoms, all those things. Let us know, because this is where we get our information from. So I appreciate you guys watching. I'll check back in a couple days after driving, and then we'll see how it is. So, all right, see ya. All right, how we doing? It's been a couple days now since I've reset the adaptive learning tables on the transmission, my 2018 F-150. I am very, very pleased to report that that flare is gone. Like, it was noticeable, especially when you first started driving it, when the transmission fluid was cold. Gone. You know, I'm in normal mode. I haven't changed into eco mode yet. It's just been a couple days. So one other thing I forgot to mention too is I tried the disconnecting the negative terminal. I did that. I disconnected both of them and I jumped them across to each other to try to drain it, and that didn't really help either. Some other things that I've tried, you know, in my thought process of this whole bushing, moving, if it is a CDF drum, the gears, it's not consistent, right? So that was my biggest issue, is like this flare from 3 to 4 was not consistent. I'm pretty sure the dude that had this before me probably never saw gear 4. I drive like an old man, so it does go to gear 4. I took off from a stoplight right over here and videoed it. It went from 1, 3, 5, and maybe that's just, and that's what's been happening more now too. I'm still skipping 4, but I'm still light on the gas. So I think it's just adapting to the way I'm driving, which I guess is what it's supposed to do. So it's doing good. Real quick, don't forget, I'm dropping a link below for that OBD adapter. Please use that link. I get a little bit of a kickback if somebody clicks on that link and buys that adapter through Amazon. It worked awesome. Download FORScan on a Windows computer. If you're really smart, you can do it on a Mac computer, but I couldn't figure it out. On another note, I did, just because out of curiosity, I was already talking to a dealership. This is a 2018. It's got 123,000 miles on it. I brought it to a dealership. Dodge was offering like 18% below MSRP. So a brand new Dodge Ram Bighorn was about 52,000, and I was already talking to them, and I brought this over. They were going to give me $16,000 for a trade-in, and to me that's not worth it, because even if the transmission or the CDF drum needed to be redone, like I feel like the cost of that transmission repair, this pickup would still be worth 21, 24, whatever thousand, you know, at the end of that transmission build. So the thoughts of trading this thing in, they're gone. But either way, you know, hopefully that's one fluke, you know, after buying this from a private guy. If you run into those problems, you buy it from somebody private or even a dealership, you know, and it just drives funny, that very well points to, you know, if you buy anything with this 10R80 transmission prior to, I believe it was May of 2023 is when they made that change, putting that that groove in there so that bushing wouldn't move. If you have a transmission prior to that, look at resetting it, right? You don't have to bring it in. If you know anything, if you're on YouTube right now watching this, you're smart enough to reset this thing on your own. You just got to get the right stuff. Even like me, it cost me $100 worth of supplies getting that adapter in a Windows computer. That's still cheaper than going into the dealership and getting it reset. So, and now my kid has a computer to play on, I don't know, Fortnite or whatever. But all right, awesome. Share this with people. Do not forget to go through that step of the driving, you know, slowly through the gears. Let it go through gear 1 to 10. Get 55, 60 miles an hour, slow it down nice and easy. You're gonna jump into neutral, you're gonna jump into reverse, you're gonna go back to neutral, back into drive, and it's a process. But you know what? I feel like that is a step that is often skipped when people are resetting their transmission. So do not forget to do that. I think it's gonna make a big difference because like I said, when I did that the other day, it made a big difference from the first time I did that set to the final time I did it. And now driving it around town, just in neighborhoods, and you know, this main road I drive on is probably 45 miles an hour, but I'm not getting on it too hard and I'm just driving it like I normally would, and it's working great. So super happy. All right, drop comments below, like, subscribe. I got a bunch of different things on this channel, a lot of fishing stuff, so jump in, check it out. All right, see ya.